Alright folks, my name is Freyn, and today we're going to talk about the upcoming aberration creature Cosmo. Which, well, for those who are in my Discord, I was completely wrong about this. With the previous announcement referring to it as just concept for Cosmo and not the Cosmo, I looked far too much into that and figured it was sort of a nickname for a character, something more akin to an HLNA type companion. But no, it is a full-blown creature. We've just had the dossier revealed last night, and, well, it gives us almost everything for it, really. The only thing we know for sure that we're missing is a taming method. We can and will, of course, still do a bit of speculation on it for other areas here, but far less than we normally would with these creature reveals. That's enough waffling, though. Let's have a look at it, shall we? Obviously, the common name, as mentioned, is Cosmo, but the full species name is Cosmophasis luxtexta, which means light weaver. So no massive reveals there, it is obviously a light pet. As for Cosmophasis, well, this is a genus of jumping spider. Again, no big revelation. But a curious choice perhaps, as the appearance is clearly far more resembling that of a peacock spider, which is genus Meratus. But I think we can safely say they chose Cosmophasis for the more cutesy shorthand option there. Anyway, moving on to the dossier text. I've found just the friend to get you through these low places, but you're going to need to keep an open mind. Though I guess anyone that's made it this far shouldn't be afraid of an itsy-bitsy jumping spider. Not to mention that there's more to this shy little charmer than meets the eyes. All 8 of them. With all the horrors crawling around down here, it's easy to see why any spider might be a bit jumpy, and why it might have needed a clever new trick of its own to keep the shadows at bay. Cosmophasis seems to know when predators can be chased away by its glowing webbing. That same danger sense tells the spider to turn out the light when something comes seeking. So, seems to know when predators can be chased away. Does this potentially imply that it's not just a light pet, but an auto-light pet that turns on in the presence of specific creatures, perhaps? More likely just a bit of flavor text, I guess, but worth a thought, perhaps. As far as the clever new trick line goes, I think it's fairly safe to say that's just about it being a light pet and not something totally new. It's never easy to win someone over who's had to hide their light away in dark times. But once you do, you'll have a ride-or-die angel on your shoulder. Gain this spider's trust, and Cosmophasis will help you out of sticky situations and put its life in your hands for the toughest fights ahead. And I mean that literally. Your fuzzy new friend can gobble up the webbing of larger spiders to recycle as ammunition. Then you can use it as a handheld web shooter to slow down incoming enemies, snatch up items from the ground, and swing around like a spider-themed superhero. So we've got handheld web shooter, item collector, and a swinging reference, not to mention the drawing on the dossier. I think we can all guess where the inspiration is here. Combined with the little icons up there, though, I think we can make a fairly safe bet that the swinging is not sort of a Bloodstalker style, but more in the range of a reusable grappling hook. Something which is still very, very useful regardless, given the cave structure of Aberration. But hopefully there'll be a cooldown on its usage rather than just the ammunition mentioned. Otherwise you'll be able to avoid literally every single nasty that the map has to offer. And you know, where's the fun in that? That part of the love for Aberration comes from the difficulty after all. The webbing, it says, slows down its targets, not stop them. So again, a fairly safe guess. This is going to be something more like the Aranio's webbing and not a handheld boulder launcher. Again, something pretty reasonable, I think, to expect there. I do wonder if it's going to be sat on your shoulder like the original artwork, or if it's going to be on the wrist like this dossier art here. But I am glad that from the wording it sounds like it's going to be something you have to manually activate. Kind of like an organic piece of equipment, and not something that sits on your shoulder and just automatically slows things that get close to you. That, I think, would be a bit much. Now, one of the more intriguing things here, or at minimum, one of the most speculation inducing, is the mention of webbing of larger spiders. Now, this could be a sort of hidden TLC for the Uranio making webs, but they're not exactly common on Aberration, so I wouldn't expect that. But does it instead mean there's another spider coming that we haven't been told about? Or are we simply going to start seeing webs as a harvestable resource node? Would certainly make some of those spider-themed caves on other maps suddenly have a whole other dynamic to them. It all sounds good so far, but is it? I'm a bit concerned with the usual issues we seem to have of power creep. Aberration has 4 light pets already, after all, and which one you use at the moment is essentially just personal preference. There's no major bonus to one over the other. But now with this, we'll have a light pet that also doubles as a mobility tool, perhaps even a bit of taming help there with the slowdown. This is clearly going to obsolete all the other light pets. Now, if you remove the light part, of course, I think several people would say it becomes a waste, that the other pets are the clear winner because you need charge light on Aberration. And if you remove the webbing aspects, then, well, it's a pointless addition because it's just another light pet. We already have 4. But I think removing the light and just making it a mobility pet would be fine. After all, if you're hanging from the ceiling constantly, you don't need that light as much. It'll make it much more of a personal preference which pet you use, and I think many would still pick it even without the charge light. Now though, to address the elephant in the cave. I've thought a great deal on this, and I wasn't originally going to discuss it at all. My opinion is kind of down the middle, and I'm mostly here for information, so I'd rather avoid any drama, but I do keep being asked about it, so here we go. When the creature votes occurred, the jumping spider, Mavia, was very popular. It ultimately finished second in the Aberration vote and a couple of others. After the 3rd time it came second, the community begged, and I mean begged, for it to be added anyway. Now obviously, most of the winning designs have been kept fairly close to their original submission, with the Fasola having the biggest change. But it has always been a point that they've made sure to mention in every vote that it was about submitting a creature, not a design. So seeing this changed from the jumping spider you may have seen before, it shouldn't be a big surprise. It's very likely that Wildcard looked at the results and at the community spam and said, wow, people really want a jumping spider in the game. And this is the result of that. I don't think they're really doing anything wrong here. They're not trying to deny that it's because of the submission's popularity, although I do think a little mention of sort of, we heard you, here you go, would make a difference. Changes are to be expected, and honestly the most similar thing between the two is the looks. And well, both are based off a real creature, so that's not surprising. Although ironically, that creature isn't the Mavia or Cosmo Faces genus. Now it is of course a paid creature though, and I think that's the most problematic part here. Because to some it feels like Wildcard's thought was instead not, hey, let's give people what they want, but hey, we can profit off this. But you've got to remember that adding new creatures isn't cheap. And it was always very unlikely that if a runner-up was added out of the blue like that, something previously unplanned, it would need some funding. So while I think it being paid is the most problematic part of this entire thing, I also understand the choice and I don't begrudge Wildcard for it. I'm certainly thankful it's in the much better value Bob's Tall Tales and not another fantastic Tames pack at the very least. But ultimately, this is what the community asked for. A jumping spider coming to Ark. I understand being disappointed it's paid, but I don't think there's any reason for outrage on this. It's still, after all, more than the 0 jumping spiders that were there before. And who knows, maybe another one will come down the line. As far as taking further creatures from the votes goes, Well, if we're not using the design itself, then all that vote really amounts to is just it's market research, isn't it? You know, you're asking your community a question. What creature would you like to see? Please tick a box. Honestly, my personal concerns with Cosmo lie more in the power creep and obsolescence of existing creatures than in any other aspect of this. But there we go. Let me know what you think in the comments, but please, whether you agree or disagree, do keep it civil. I'd rather not have to lock them. In the meantime, though, thank you very much for watching. I promise I'll try and get back to some more regular content soon. For now, bye-bye.